All right. I think is this thing on? Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Fantastic. Yep, I can.
Hey.
Well, hello, Alexa Skill Builders. And it is yet another round of Steph takes over Jeff's stream while Jeff is away. Luckily, he knows about it this time. So, um, hello, everybody. It's been a few weeks since I've seen you. Been a few weeks since we've hung out. And as usual, this is going to be our office hours today. For those who have never joined the Alexa office hours, this is your time to, as a developer, ask about Alexa, about developing with Alexa, and any features that we can talk about. As usual, we can't answer every question, but we will try and answer as many as possible. And with me today, I'm super excited, is my buddy Allison Atwell, who is one of our premier VUI designers. So if you've ever browsed the VUI best practices documentation, or even looked at, there was a series on the Twitch stream as well about building with HTML skills, and they had built a cactus companion kind of carrying skill. So she is part of that. She's one of, I've been working with Allison for, gosh, 3.5 years now. And I will let Allison further introduce herself as well.
Howdy. Well, that was a pretty good introduction. Hi.
I practiced it all morning.
I think you've had more coffee than I have. Hi, I'm Allison. I'm 3P skill designer. And I work in Alexa Skills Kit. I've worked on Steph's team for a few years now, going on 4 years. I've helped hundreds of partners, 3Ps, all the way from like little one-person startup to the Fortune 500s, launch hundreds of skills, and create really great, interesting skills that people actually love to use over and over, usually.
Usually, yeah. So
that's the goal.
I think the theme for today's chat, as we're sitting here kind of answering questions, was to, I don't know, I think you get the more serious side of VUI design where you're talking about, you should say things this way, but I think it might be fun to also talk about some of the more peculiar moments we've had in having to design for voice. I know a few we've worked on together, and you've worked on way more than me, obviously, with all the people you've worked with. So I think it might be fun to talk about the A. Witters on Twitch says, I'm disappointed that Allison isn't in a motorhome in the middle of a rainstorm. So this must be somebody that follows you on Twitter.
Gosh,
so Allison did not put her Twitter on here. However, I'm going to shamelessly plug it because I think it's
I didn't realize that was an option.
I think you could totally still do it now if you wanted to. But Allison is our, I hate to say road warrior because I think that more refers to somebody that travels a lot for work. Allison is just the kind of person that thrives outdoors, and is stifled by our indoor office life, unlike me, who just doesn't like nature. And so on Allison's Twitter, she travels, while she's working, she travels all over, mostly, I guess, the west half of the US right now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm hoping to get over east, actually. I almost got over east. I went as far as almost Nebraska. I just got home a week ago. And I intended to go east, but then I realized I need to come home and do a bunch of things if I'm going to be away several more months. So I'm on a pit stop right now, but as you can see around me, I still bring the outside inside with
right.
me.
Yeah. Allison's house
help
is
myself.
80% plants. I think that's also on your Twitter, is like various plants that you have. Literally, Allison is the opposite of me in all ways possible. I murder plants just through neglect, and I am not good with the outdoors. And so if you want some really awesome pictures of the West Coast, of Allison's travel, Allison, what is your Twitter handle for people to?
It's just my first and last name, Allison Atwell.
So easy.
That's all
it is. So
or Spruce Moose AAA as well on Instagram and YouTube. I started a YouTube channel this year.
You did. Wow. So yeah. Yeah, so basically her Twitter is outdoors, plants, and Alexa, which is, I think, a pretty good hat trick of things to follow.
So and yes, I do have Alexa in the trailer.
Are you using Echo Auto?
No, actually, I just have a couple of devices now, actually, because I had some projects to do and I needed several devices. So I actually have 3 of them in the trailer right now because I had to be testing. I drove through Denver. I had to stop by a Best Buy and buy more. It was the whole thing.
Do you tether your phone for Wi-Fi on them?
So sometimes I can do that, and then I also just have through my cell phone carrier a separate hotspot that everything
Oh.
basically lives off of, and it has its own data plan and stuff, so there's no like cap. Every phone plan has like a hotspot data cap. Even if you have unlimited data, it's
Mhm,
dumb.
mhm.
So separate hotspot runs everything, including like security cameras when I'm gone. It's great.
Nice. Yeah. I'd be curious. You should totally make some posts about that because I think the one thing that I'm always having to toy with is the especially with Echo Auto, the not having constant access. And I mean, the phone is good, but
Right,
even the phone doesn't have constant access. And so,
right.
I think one day maybe we'll have an offline Alexa,
Right.
and
I
she
do
can.
have an Echo Auto in my vehicle, although I
Mhm.
still have devices plugged in inside the trailer. And what's been helpful is because it is tethering off your phone. So if your data is crappy, like
Right,
it's
right.
terrible to try to do something when you've got like 1 bar of service. Forget about it. But I have a cell signal booster, which they're kind of pricey, but for me, it's meant the difference between like driving for signal so I can do work and not. So I think it's paid for itself by now, 2 years later, in gas money.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
it boosts
yeah.
like 2 bars to 4 bars, and that like it works now, and I get a couple more hours of use out of it, if I'm driving really
I
far.
I do recall in the early days of this kind of ultimate work from home that you have managed to kind of make work is that it was always, hey, I'm going to be in the middle of driving through a canyon. I'll get to that in an hour.
Right.
And so I would think that the investment in something like that is definitely worth it for you. It's kind of like me, investing in a good monitor, right? It's or actually, you know, I think the rest of the team are still putting their monitors on books and or they're just using their laptop. And I'm like, guys, we've been working from home for 2 years now. Like, you should have a setup. But some people
Right.
they make it work.
Even I
Anyway,
have a setup at home. And also in the trailer, I have this like TV prep space and I don't have a TV. So I'm like, I could put a sweet monitor in there. Maybe I
you
should do
could, you
that.
could, you should definitely put a monitor in there. Um, 3D Polywraith on Twitch is asking, when do you think there will be a mesh router that has a built-in Alexa? So I again cannot speak to future product. However, we have Amazon, as part of Amazon is the Eero team that how long I think they got acquired 2 years ago, 3 years ago. So I could see a scenario in which eventually Eero is Alexa enabled. I kind of question. I think it'd be more Alexa having her own Wi-Fi being useful versus a mesh. I don't need to tell my router to do much, so I can't imagine I would want to voice enable my router. But I could see a scenario in which Alexa has her own. I mean, we even had that with kind of the Tap had its own power, but maybe having her own Wi-Fi network like a portable tablet, or you could do it with the tablet, I guess. So that's something to think about. W Giorgio on Twitch says, "Wow, Allison is here." Apparently, your
I'm
reputation precedes
everywhere.
everywhere, literally
We play
everywhere.
this game every time I get on camera though. Usually it's, well, where are you?
Allison is in a stationary location, which I didn't know what to expect actually when I invited you to join us today. I was like, well, we could be doing the trailer, we could be in the middle of a canyon. We'll see
Right.
how it goes. So the fact
Well,
that you
this
are
place
stationed.
still has wheels actually.
Oh, okay. Well, my correction. Um, so Bird Bars on Twitch asks, "Hey, Steph Allison, have a skill certified live and functions perfectly with invocation phrase and can be searched on the Amazon Alexa app. On the Amazon Alexa skill store directory, it is listed for the 5 English locales and 2 Spanish locales. However, it is not searchable for Amazon.com.mx skill store. Who should I ask about getting the skill listed in the Amazon skill store directory?" So my first question to you would be, how in the distribution section in the Alexa app, did you select Mexico? That's I realize that seems like a silly first round question, but a lot of people miss selecting the distribution countries or selecting all. So I would first confirm that you've done that and then go from there. 3D Polyraces don't diss the book pile monitors, and I am dissing it, guys. You're better than that. And the books that you are putting your monitors on are better than that too. even that relic. Actually, the C book is quite tiny, so it wouldn't actually hold up a monitor, but I've seen it used as a supplemental. Let's see. Frank E on YouTube says, I read the code fragments and goodbye display templates, hello Alexa responsive templates, but I want complete working sample, including showing how to use with exiting code containing viewport settings. Frank, if you could be a little bit more descriptive of what you're looking for. Yeah, so the display interface is being retired soon, but a lot of the templates you're looking for are actually within the design console within. So if you go into your skill and there is a design section, the templates that you're looking for are in there. We keep them stored in there. And so you can start with those. And then if those don't work, there are a lot of people who post examples on GitHub. Yeah, let's talk about that actually. So APL is here. I think a lot of us, were expecting once APL came out that display wouldn't be cool anymore. But I'm curious what for you, Allison, kind of what are some of your favorite components of APL that we have today? Things that you maybe like working with or like seeing in skills.
Ooh, well, actually, I didn't know. I thought that templates display had been deprecated already. It's been so long since anyone has told me that's what they're using, and I've given any sort of advice related to templates. That's something I haven't heard in a while, actually. Oh gosh, favorite components. There have been, and my brain is a bit jumbled right now because the last thing I did that was really display intensive was actually HTML. So now my brain is going back and forth. But oh gosh, what have I seen done really well? So someone and a few people have tried this like grid-based games like Battleship, and maybe you can tell me which component this is. They've done things like Battleship and chess where you can call out or tap the area on the screen. And a few people have tried this. In chess, you would think that calling out like A4 to, whatever your next move is. I don't play chess.
Oh, so sad.
That would get confusing, but people do that over voice, but then they find the screen useful, and they were just switching out this like grid of image components, and I thought that was really interesting what they had done with that.
Yeah, I think there's a couple ways that you can accomplish that, and actually our buddy Nick did that for the skills we were working on together. So, in the grid layout that showed the various items that you had, like you had, so for background, Allison, our friend Nick, and I worked on a simulation skill. And this is the one I use when I tell people try and start small. We started very big. And so, but Nick, who is our APL and HTML guru, he figured out a way to do with APL at the time. We didn't even have HTML support. He figured out with APL, and this would have been APL, 2 years ago. So not even the current APL that has way more features. He figured out a way to do a grid, a layered grid. And if you had built like a house or you had built a barn or something, it would show them on this grid. And at that point, each of the items has a name. So you just kind of, either you can give it the name of the actual chess location, or you can just give it a random name, and when they click on it, you know where that is. It's a little, I would say, a lot more effective on the larger Echo shows and the larger screens. Obviously, I think on the Echo Show 5, playing chess, there's not enough room. The touch might register to something else. But yeah, this surprisingly the ability to do that is just a lot of patience and a lot of, rendering a grid of items and making them selectable. So we should get Nick on here sometime to talk about some of the strange stuff he has done with APL and HTML. But yeah, that is really cool. And his onboarding project for the team, what he created chess. So it's really apropos to be talking about that now. We have had some questions come in since we've been talking. Andy Muncy on LinkedIn says, I'd like my skill to be able to call the user prior opt-in permission first, of course, so they pick up and it's Alexa asking them a question or giving them some info. Yeah, so currently we don't support native calling with Alexa. That is not a feature that can be called right now. However, you could do something interesting with your own app and Twilio, for example, which supports text and phone. But we do not currently support the ability to call a user with the device.
If you were to try to fake such a thing, how would you go about doing that? Like if it was a skill that runs in the background or something like that, could you fake, like quote unquote, fake that experience? Thinking as a designer.
Yeah, so one way that I do not believe would pass certification is to use Twilio. So you would say like, hey, can I call you now? The user would say yes, and then it calls Twilio, and Twilio, they've already gotten the phone number, they've made the call. I think that might run into some certification requirement issues, but that is the most direct way to do it. But at that point, then you're handling the rest of the interaction outside of Alexa. So the skill session would need to end, things like that. Perfectly reasonable. You can have it do it. It's more of you're using Alexa to get consent. The other way to do it, which could be interesting, is with the Echo to App feature. So I believe we announced this at Alexa Live this year. And so the ability to launch an app from Alexa. And so again, I could have an app that has either like a chat or something like that. And I could have Alexa, as the consent device, hand that over, but hand the information to the app on the user's phone. I think that one would actually not cause a lot of conflict with certification, so probably the better option. But it's either one is worth a shot. I've worked with the Twilio APIs in the past, actually for 6 years now. I've worked with them on and off. The evolution those APIs have gone through is just amazing. And so that's one way to do it. It's a way that a lot of people do it. I think we have some AWS end-to-end call center solutions that use Alexa on kind of the front end and does that same thing where it'll then be, if you can't figure out the first level tech answer, it'll be like, hey, do you want to talk to a representative? Yes. And then you can use a third-party API to initiate the call and go from there. And then once you've initiated that call and you're getting information outside of Alexa, you can actually start using some of the AWS machine learning APIs. And the classic one being sentiment analysis. You can tell when this conversation is starting to go bad and go from there. So that's a very long explanation about ways to do that.
You mentioned the call center and Alexa handling call center type of stuff. Piece of trivia here. Did you know when you call Amazon customer service, have you ever called Amazon customer service for anything and gotten the phone menu?
No, I accept my mistake.
When you call, you talk to Matthew, our poly.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure actually it's likely, again, maybe we should get some AWS people over here as well to talk during office hours, it's likely that everything, that second half of the solution I just talked about, we have these kind of case studies, these architectures available online with AWS's information. It's likely that architecture was derived from us just implementing that in our own call center. It makes sense in many ways, especially with things that are common. We are experiencing right now, people are changing careers, people are moving to new jobs, people are, quitting and taking sabbaticals. So we have fewer and fewer people in roles overall, and it makes sense to kind of ease some of that burden, that those common questions that you feel like you're answering over and over again, ease some of that with just an automated system. And it helps the automated system get better. So I see a world in which we have smarter call centers and more solutions like this. All right. Data Tria has asked a few times now on YouTube how to install and use Skillflow Builder. I would recommend going to the GitHub repo for Skillflow Builder and following the instructions there. That is going to be the best way to do it. I'm sure I can find the repo here real quick. And I do, Allison, talk about Skillflow Builder a lot on this channel because we spent so much time in it.
We did, didn't we?
So that is going to be the link to Skillflow Builder. The instructions are all there. There are two ways to install it, with the editor or the developer. You can do either one. Editors for people who are more design-oriented, developers for developers, so you can be more in a code infrastructure. All right. What are the questions? I've fallen behind on questions. Yeah, Zeladot has plugged apl.ninja. So you can check that out for more APL content. Yeah, so BirdBar has expanded on our MX question that the web, the speculation here is that the web crawler has not picked up the skill for the MX store. And A. Witters is right. BirdBar, I highly recommend you open a support case through the developer console. That'll be the fastest way to get it resolved. I can't exactly resolve it right now, but maybe I'll take a look afterwards. But thank you, A. Witters. Andy Muncie also would like Echo devices to be able to read RFID packaging that can trigger a skill. So that one's a little bit more difficult because that's essentially having a non-voice action trigger a skill. You can use offline messaging, which is a little bit more of an advanced feature, and that can send certain triggers to the skill. But overall, you will need a voice interaction to initiate a skill experience in most cases. All right. I'm going to keep going. Trade last. Could you use Amazon Connect post Lex? For the call center use case, I assume is what you're referring to? Yes. I believe that's actually the architecture that you can find from AWS is using Amazon Connect and Lex. And Zeladot is also helping out with getting support. This is actually a great link, alexa.design/contact us. That will lead you to the support case for, I'll leave that up for a minute. Andy Muncie on LinkedIn is talking about an audio romantic drama. We can talk about that for a little bit. I have a deep sorted history. This would be great for our design discussion. A deep sorted history with skills that do romance. We don't have a lot of those, but I apparently have the market on working on all of them.
How many? Because I feel like maybe I've seen one or two myself as well.
Yeah, well, so I think we've probably worked. So this is a great one. So in skills we have, you can go out there, everybody. There's hundreds of thousands of, probably millions of skills at this point. Don't quote me on that number. I don't actually know the number of skills at any given time. But, usually what we see a lot of is like the song quizzes where you are, doing competitive gaming and it's very quick. Or you have the longer gaming experiences. What's one that I was playing recently? I think it was Dark Citadel, which is a very intriguing skill. There's also... what is it? Night Manager out of Germany. That's a fun skill.
I haven't played that one before. Dark Citadel is the last one I played.
Yeah, that's one that I've used quite a bit, and I'm being prompted to share the Slack channel, so I guess I will do that real quick. I know what I'm doing. Yeah, so for those that don't know, we do have a Slack channel. It is mostly community run, honestly. But this is a place where you can go and you can ask questions. The community is very good about answering and about helping each other out. Occasionally I poke my head in there. Allison, you're welcome to join us in the Slack channel as well. It's a bit of a dark hole of sometimes general chatter, but it's a good place to reach out if you have questions and you can't find the answer easily or on the internet. Also, we're always curious. I kind of plugged this last time, but you know, there's a lot of documentation out there on Alexa, and sometimes that documentation may not be quite as up to date as you would like. So if you notice issues with the documentation or things that you would like to see in them, also feel free to drop that into the Slack channel, or you can open another support ticket and note the documentation. We had somebody from our DAG team, our developer advocacy group. English is my first language. Our developer advocacy group on last time I was here, and talking about documentation updates and how much they, just having this community to kind of help us keep things, running easy for everybody. And he loves getting those kind of requests because it means that people really kind of care about the stuff that they're working on. So, romance. Anyways, so we were talking about you should try out Night Manager. It's fun. It's but one genre that I think is really not touched on, has been really interesting to work with, is the romance genre. So we've also had horror. I don't play those skills. I don't like horror. So if you have a horror skill, feel free to plug it now. Actually, I probably can't share it because it might be it might be mature rated. But if you have a non-mature rated scary skill, I will check it out and maybe plug it here. But otherwise, I will not play it. Do not ask me if I like it. I do not like anything scary. I am a giant child when it comes to scary things. But
the magic door gets kind of spooky sometimes.
Does it?
Not horror spooky, but just like that's kind of creepy spooky.
Yeah, I don't think I've played enough of Magic Door to hit that. I do, and also I think from my standpoint, Magic Door was one of those skills that was, for many reasons, ahead of its time, and so just managed to pull off some things that you couldn't do with skills 2 years ago. And so I think for me, when I play Magic Door, it's always out of fascination. And there are skills that I will. Mike Elmore on YouTube says Magic Door has a creepy witch storyline that creeped me out. That might be it. Again, I haven't played it.
Is it a witch? It's been like a year since I ran into that scenario. But yeah, I think I do recall the witch now. That might have been the same scenario.
All right. Yeah, there's a W. Giorgio recommended skill that I will verify before I share with the rest of humanity. For obvious reasons. Not that I don't trust you, but I don't trust you. Let me look this up. I love how the second recommendation on this search is Ticket to Ride.
Another one that was not horror that kind of creeped me out was the Vortex. Once you get so far and you start piecing together more of what's going on, it is like very like unsettling.
Yeah, the Vortex is one of those ones that's like a sci-fi thriller type experience, and you definitely don't expect it. It is one where, again, I play with a sense of, and just technically quite impressed by what they've done visually with the skill, and so it's one that I really like to check out. Cards of Wonder is what W. Giorgio recommended. I assume this is a plug of a skill. It is not horror at all. I may actually check this out. You can collect over 140
cards. That's not the first
time
someone has recommended that skill. I have heard.
Really? Yeah. Okay, well then now I do have to check it out. So I'll play that after.
I'm pretty sure I heard about it on Twitter.
Cards of Wonder. So check that out. Let me know how it is. Trade Last points out that the documentation feedback tab now lets you elaborate on errors and typos. Yes, we did announce that update. I forget when, but you can provide more granular feedback on documentation. Really great thing to point out. Another way to see those fixes that probably frustrate you and you would like to see them in there. Frank E says, can an Alexa skill be triggered by a smart home event? Technically, yes. So I recommend you look up multi-capability skills. You'll see them as being a hybrid of custom skills and smart home skills, and explore those a little bit. Hawk 2000, I have heard of that skill. I do not for me. W. Georgia asks, what happened to my cactus?
My cactus. So my cactus actually is what Steph mentioned earlier, which was the skill that Justin and Joe and I on the evangelism team were building last year. We were streaming for a couple of months. And we ran a beta of it, and then Justin moved to another team, and we couldn't really launch the skill because we just didn't have, we got super busy at the beginning of the year, but we ran a pretty successful beta of it. And from the numbers, it looks like a lot of people learned a lot from the streams. And actually, all of the streams are now available on the developer portal. They're on their own page. That's linked from the GitHub. And the GitHub is alexa.design/my-cactus. And that's where you can find the full code sample and the design templates and everything. So all those resources are still out there. So actually, I would love to see somebody literally steal that code and make a simulator skill of their own. That's what we wanted people to do from the beginning. So take that code and play with it. I'd love to see someone make another kind of simulator, if not a cactus, I know there's a pet rock already out there, pet rock simulator.
Pet rock, that's taking it way back.
Some other house plant, dinosaur, that would be fun. I would love to see some simulator skills come out of that. But yeah,
we should make, we should get some of Justin's time and get my cactus launched.
I think we should too.
He's speaking of smart home, Justin didn't go that far. He just went to the smart home team. So he's still morally obligated to launch the cactus. Maybe you can link your simulated cactus to a real cactus with a like a temperature and a moisture monitor. And so if you let your real cactus die, your Alexa cactus die. Well, that got dark. Speaking of horror genre. But
there are a lot of startups out there that are doing like home gardening solutions that work with voice assistants that advertise quite a bit. I'm really fascinated by those. I haven't tried any of them myself at home, but I'm very interested in that.
Yeah, I remember even before Alexa existed, when IoT was getting a little less, becoming cheaper and cheaper to do. Right. The big thing that we would always train people on to get them started was the sensors you needed to do kind of an at-home, a home automation. I still couldn't keep a plant alive with that, but a home automation for like watering. Yeah, that's how
I remember seeing so many of those back in the day.
And then
2015 era.
And then there were all the Kickstarters where people just basically took that and made it a plug and play. And I was like, yeah, I'll just do that. I don't have time to sit here with soldering a Raspberry Pi or an Arduino. All right. So reboot cactus. I think that's what we got out of this. Mike Elmore on YouTube asked a really great question. Is there a way to make a skill that is just for you? I want to make a daily medical vital skill for recording my mom's vital, but don't want to deal with the HIPAA laws by making it a public skill. So there is, unfortunately, it does require you to just put the skill perpetually into beta mode. You could also do a blueprint, but it won't have, I don't think we have a blueprint template type for something as specific as this. I could look into how you can modify an existing blueprint.
Yeah, I was going to say, maybe there's some kind of blueprint template that is generic enough that you could modify it to do such a thing. It's been a while since I've looked at how many templates are out there. There are new ones.
Yeah, there's a personal trainer. I wonder if you could rename the workouts. Yeah, I imagine there's a way probably to take one of these quizzes or flashcards, blueprints, and modify them. Let's see, fun and games, storyteller. There's quite a few blueprints now. Wow.
Right.
Yeah, I think the best thing, you could modify a blueprint But again, that would still make it, in order to get it available. Um, yeah, you could share your skill. So yeah, there's two options. You can use blueprints, or you can just keep turning on the beta. Betas do expire every 90 days. So you just have to remember to re-enable it. And I think the other problem with that is you lose the historical data. But if you're doing something like exporting this information to like an S3 bucket or another storage, then maybe less about keeping track of the skill session. So those are a couple ways. We have something called private skills that are used with Alexa for Business. However, Alexa for Business is now a invite-only program, so you'd have to request access to it. You can certainly do that as well. You would set up a device to be managed by you, and then you could publish a private skill to just be used by that device. So that's another option if you want to check it out. All right. W. Giorgio says, I want to play my cactus. Yep, heard you. We're going to bring Justin back onto the stream one day and just force the two of you to finish.
There has been demand from the people. It has to happen.
Just try it. In terms of Skillflow Builder, I just recommend going to a search engine and searching for Skillflow Builder. Yeah, the third link will usually be the GitHub if you're having issues accessing that link. Okay, back to the romance genre, because it's something the reason I am so passionate about it is when I joined the Alexa team, my skill that I was building was a romance, like a choose your own adventure romance novel. And I was super excited about it. And it's never been published. It will never see the light of day. It is also a pre SDK2 skill, so it definitely will never see the light of day. But I was super proud of it. And ironically, I have managed to, the few skills that have come through that are in a very similar vein, I have managed to touch all of them, not even on purpose. And so I think what's interesting is when you think about the idea, and there's a lot of mobile apps that do this, both, a lot of them originating from Asia. It's a really popular genre to have like these kind of cutesy romance-esque storylines, but there are some from Europe and other locations as well. It's a very popular video game genre. And so, but the weird thing was that, in terms of my weirdest skill building experience or weird voice user interface, is dealing with kind of the embarrassment of responding to those dialogues within a skill. And I think it's one thing where I was like, I think it's easier to read romance novels than it is to speak them out loud, because you just want to sit in a room quietly and respond. So I think that's why the genre is not very popular on voice. It is a very difficult one to pull off. And I think we've had secondhand just embarrassment reading the scripts for these skills.
Right. So actually, that's funny. In college, one of my roommates and I used to it was literally a drinking game. Like, don't ever do this as a drinking game. But you read a romance novel out loud, and then if you laugh, you lose, and then you have to the person who keeps the laughing has to read it. You can bend the rules all kinds of ways, but it was entertainment, was reading that stuff out loud. It was hilarious.
Yeah. So that's kind of like it felt like a natural fit for voice. Like, oh my gosh, yeah, turn taking. Let's just when you do it in practice, and there are a couple skills out there you can find in the catalog that do this genre, and it's just one.
Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just thinking for W. Giorgio, notes voiceovers are a must. Yes, this is very true. Like having a robotic voice speak to you, Yeah,
that won't work. Do you think that's because we know so many devices? I don't know what an exact number or anything, but we know so many devices are in communal space. And often when people play games and things like that, part of the entertainment is their onlookers sometimes, or at least people in the room. Do you think that's it? It's mostly communal devices out there.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's certain, is this a game that you want somebody to overhear? I think is the question. Right. I would love to see someone combine this with more of a humor genre, like turning your game into something you can do with Alexa where it's, try to get through this without laughing. But that certainly, I think romance skills are the strangest vui experience I've had to go through yet.
Right.
I can't think. Is there any other kind of vui experience that you've seen that really stood out to you? Kind of stuck in your memory. Could be good. It could be humorous. It could be like, oh
Oh
gosh, I don't.
gosh. That's such a big question. I
Can you
like being
remember any vui experience?
surprised. I think voice is great for a couple of things like surprise and suspense. Sound games, and I mean, even in video game sounds, we all know this. I love video game soundtracks, even though I am not a gamer. I collect the soundtracks because they're so great at building emotion and suspense. And when you're engaging with a voice and someone is talking to you and it sounds like somebody is in the room with you, I think that's why people are starting to latch onto the horror genre, because there's just so much potential there. And the most intense experiences I've had using a skill have been like testing a horror skill, or something kind of creepy happens, like I said, that moment in the vortex, but also like surprise in a way that like I didn't expect you to go so far. And I
Mm-hmm.
know a lot of people, the way that they play games is they like to explore every path to like kind of appreciate the full game design and finding Easter eggs and things like that. So one of those was actually a first party, like it was Amazon's experience, but I asked my device, I'm not going to say it because she's right there and I can't reach the mute button, but I asked her to sing a song, and it was an original song that Alexa sings. Oh, I said it. I'm
There it
gonna wait.
goes.
Hold on. No, Alexa, stop. I don't know what song she was just about to play. It says explicit though next to it. I'm so glad that didn't start. But anyway, I asked her to sing a song, and it was original music written by the music team, and it was about how great, technology can be, and it ends like 3 cheers for technology. Just ask your device. I don't know if you'll get the same experience, but then I followed up by saying, device, that was beautiful. She responded to me, and I didn't expect that, and she said, thank you. People tell me I'm a natural. And it was like, that was such a meta robot joke. I couldn't even handle it. And I didn't expect her to respond to something I said. And the fact that she had a response to the silly thing that I said, like, why would I expect, a machine to have some kind of emotional response to something I said?
Right.
And then what it was like a super meta joke, because, she knew, or the team that wrote that knew, I would not be expecting that. So moments like that, I love it when people build that into skills. Like I can say something very naturally that I might say to a person I would never expect, a robot of any kind to respond to that. When people are able to build that into their skills, it's just like, that makes the experience for me, and I remember it forever, and I will go back to that skill looking for more of that.
That's actually a really great point. I think it's sometimes hard to get those experiences into a skill, because sometimes even people will never hit them. The likelihood of them triggering an event are rare. An interesting one that you wouldn't expect to have such delightful little just additions is actually the Capital One skill. And I'm talking about Capital One, the bank skill.
Yep.
So something you would
I'm
expect to be
familiar. I use that skill to
right.
pay my bill every month.
Okay, yeah, exactly.
Yep,
So
I'm a customer.
right. So you would think it'd be a very I don't want to say stodgy, but a very serious experience, like not room for humor. But there are moments like if you log in or check multiple times in a very short period of time, she'll make a comment like, "Oh, you must be," she makes these little kind of quips in the experience.
Oh,
It's
that's never happened to me before. That's
yeah, I think
delightful.
again, so it's very hard to trigger these kind of unique experiences because you put them in there for like it's kind of like when somebody a developer hides something in the code, and somebody comes along years later and finds it, or again, you find this this tiny Easter egg in the game, and it could be, I think some Easter eggs in games have been found years after they were released, and it's that same thing, is that you would have to be doing an unusual action for the Capital One skill to trigger it. But I was listening to the experience, obviously exhausting the experience in this situation, and there were these cute little comments that she would occasionally interject, and some people might eventually, because they're so rare, they have to be triggered by an extreme event. You don't get tired of them. And I also really love to encounter those kind of experiences where, I'm just doing my day to day, but then I decide to do something a little out of the ordinary, and Alexa notices and makes a comment on it. So yeah, I would say I wouldn't recommend it since it is your bank skill and is tied to money. But you could try and trigger some of the repetitive logins or things like that. And she makes some pretty funny comments.
That's
If
awesome.
anybody also has a fun Easter egg experience they've run into in a skill, love to hear about it. Again, I'm going to be trying to guess a few skills today after this. Another one is, I don't know, I've not seen this pulled off very well yet, is the ability to get me what I need before I know I need it. That is very hard to do, but I think actually, I can't think of a skill that has really gotten me there. And that's kind of the experience I see that as the next stage of Alexa's. Like, I come in and, like my Amazon account, she knows enough about me to say, hey, do you need X, Y, and Z, or giving that information. That's, Alexa 5 years from now, maybe. But there are a couple skills where I don't have to ask the same questions over and over. And it is really nice. It's something simple where it's just keep in mind the things that I've said and taking action on that.
Right. Actually, that's funny you mentioned that. And then we were just talking about a finance skill. I've seen apps do this where there will be like some kind of insight. So like going back to our Capital One example, like it could be something like, I've logged in and then it says, hey, you've made your minimum payment for the last 6 months. You could save this much interest in the next 6 months by making this payment every month, like stuff like that. I see people pull off pretty well in apps, but I think it can be such a much more natural thing via voice, but every so often.
Yeah, it's something. It really is a fine line of how to do those efficiencies and do that additional information without again, the scenarios when it's like, hey, I just don't want to have a conversation anymore. Just tell me what I need and let's go. So it is a very fine line. I know a lot of developers are pretty big on getting customer feedback. And I would say in general, as users, it's better to get more feedback than not. I know a lot of people put their support emails in their skill descriptions. I encourage everybody to use that, reach out, say like, hey, this is what I really loved about it. We all the time receive messages and notes from developers saying like, hey, my user really loved this, and this is kind of what I live for in skills. So we love to see those, and developers I know also love to see them. Feel free to disagree in chat if you don't like to see feedback from your users, but I'm pretty sure everybody in the chat likes some indication that people are using their content. So let me think.
Another skill that did this really well, and it's an example of kind of anticipating what you wanted to hear anyway. I know that TuneIn Live does like quote unquote remember like what team you asked about last. And so like if you were to open the TuneIn Live skill, and of course if you asked about the Seahawks every day and there's some new relevant information about the Seahawks, hey, there's a game on today, listen to it here later, is going to be the response you're going to get when you open the TuneIn Live skill. And that's probably what you wanted to know anyway. Why else would you be asking about the Seahawks at 6 o'clock in the morning?
Right.
You probably wanted information about what's happening coming up that day.
Right.
So
yeah.
that was a really nice one where it's like, you don't have to ask for what you wanted, because I'm pretty darn sure, the radio skill that only plays sports, basically, you probably wanted to know about the team that you always ask about.
Right. And I think people even can take that a step further with, proactive events and notifications where, hey, you seem to ask about the Seahawks a lot. Would you like me to notify you whenever there's a game on? Right. I think I've seen that done very well. And it's like, yes, please tell me when this, I watch, admittedly, I watch a lot of foreign TV, so we don't necessarily have skills that cater to that. But I would love them to be like, the minute that one of my shows is available and subtitled on YouTube or wherever they're going to post it, I just get ad hoc kind of proactive events saying like, "Hey, it's available now." I would sprint for my device at that point,
Right.
and so
I
there's stuff like
always
that.
miss my YouTube notifications and I'm really bummed about it. Like if you can only
Right.
tell me somebody was live, that would be great.
Yeah. Yeah. No. Exactly. It's definitely the great thing about Alexa, at least for me, in the locations I have it, is that it is a way to get my attention when I'm in, working on my laptop, maybe staring at my phone. Like, yeah, you could send me push notifications, but if the device is kind of making a very loud bing bong sound, then I'm probably going to wonder what it was. And no, those are just ways to kind of engage with the users further. Allison, what is your number one must have for a good skill?
For a what?
For a good skill. Number one VUI advice must
Oh.
must have. I'm asking you to pick your favorite child.
Oh, like a piece of advice.
Yeah, like
Um,
if there's one thing you
well,
could you could tell every developer, what would it be?
I think if assuming you have fully documented, what kinds of experiences and what kinds of context based on what the customer said, how you're going to respond, assuming that you've documented all of that, the best thing you could do for yourself that maybe supersedes all other tips that I could give somebody is to role play your skill out loud, speak the script, speak through an entire conversation, speak through multiple flows, just say it out loud. You don't have to build a prototype. In fact, don't build anything. Don't waste your time until you speak it out loud, with yourself, with other people, and do it a few times because you will probably rewrite everything. And that's if without explaining any nuances of like how humans communicate and all sorts of things, if you just do that, you're going to catch a lot of things that tend to get people in trouble and take people down dead ends and frustrates customers and players and whoever else you're catering to. Like it frustrates people. You're gonna find a lot of mistakes and things that you could do better if you just say things out loud. And actually, what I do, like since I travel, and I'm usually out hiking or something, if I can get away with it and get away for a few hours just to quote unquote write, I will speak things into my phone while I am hiking and then I will go transcribe it later. I start with speaking. I mean, not everybody thinks that way, but if you speak it out loud at some point, I won't need to tell you like 80% of the things I end up having to tell people when I read a script.
Yeah, I mean that's honestly, I think that's the best advice you can get. One thing that we encourage everybody to do is to role play out your experience for sure, because I think for especially as developers, a lot of times we approach voice as a developer would, and I can't tell you how the opposite of humans interact that is. And so I'm fortunate enough to have dealt with both like writing linguistically and development, and so understanding, this is what got me into voice, is being fascinated by the way people interact and the way you can mimic conversation with voice interfaces. But yeah, I would say a lot of times the first question we say is I'll do an experience and I'll be like, yeah, but would you talk to someone? And
Right.
would you think to ask these questions this way? And usually the answer is no, and we just
Right.
kind of step back and rethink it.
Right.
So yeah, it is conversation. It is, and so you should be approaching it from a conversational standpoint.
And
And
there's a
then
lot of good design advice out there that says like, oh, well, make a flow chart of what you want to do and then, make storyboards of like every single response, and that's all very good and a good way to dive very deep into what you're doing. But I've seen people make the mistake of they create like a flow chart of what needs to happen, and they go through the flow chart and write a bunch of messages that seem appropriate at the time, and so now they've got all these messages. And then I look at it and I say, I'm going to draw a line through this flow chart and this is going to be my flow, and I speak that as a script. It is absolutely unbearable to listen to because each response is like technically okay, but it's so long and it repeats information, and nobody would ever talk like that because nobody goes through a flowchart in their heads when they're having a conversation.
most people, I
So a
would say.
flowchart will get you so far to like maybe communicate your ideas about how the skill should work, but when it comes to actually like creating responses appropriate to every scenario and everything that the customer said, it just breaks down. So speaking it out loud is a good safeguard there, no matter how you choose to like document the final experience.
Definitely, definitely. Yeah, so you heard it here. No more flowcharts. Just have conversations. I do want to point out Ashish Ashish on YouTube actually did point out something that my brain completely skipped on about making skills that are only for you. Yes, if the device is in your account and you are the developer, then it is in dev mode and it is always available to you. So yeah, so if you, for Mike's earlier question about having a skill that is just for you, for tracking certain information, not wanting it to go public, yes, if you put the device in your account and the same account that you are using for development and turn on testing from the test tab, you are the developer, it is your dev skill, and it is always available to you. That's very good advice. I think I sometimes just assume that people don't want to put a device in their own account. I deal too much with devices in other people's accounts. So yeah, that is a really great way to keep a skill local to you. Just don't develop in prod at that point, I guess. So you might want to have a separate skill for testing out new features or anything. All right. Well, we are at the bottom of top of the hour, bottom of the hour, bottom of the hour. 1 minute left. Haven't had a ton of questions today, but thank you all for joining us for office hours. Your fearless leader, Jeff, will be back next week. No telling when I will randomly show up again. So every time I think is my last, and then I'm here again. So as always, if if you have any questions beyond this, you're still running into issues, maybe you didn't like the getting W. Georgia goes, who is Jeff? That's perfect. Who's that guy? And also Ryan should be back next week as well. Yeah, Ryan Lowe, who has been showing up for the show, what did he call himself? Jeff's understudy, or the new Jeff. And then we had a little bit of confusion for a minute, Allison, about which Jeff it was, which obviously Jeff Blankenberg. So he will be back as well. They're both out this week, but they should be back next week. But yeah, if you have additional questions, concerns, comments, feel free to join the Slack. Maybe we can convince Allison to join the Slack as well. And then you can find me on Twitter. I don't get on there much, and I don't necessarily tweet about Alexa all that much, but follow Allison Atwell on Twitter. You can watch her travels down the West Coast, and I think you even got to Canada at one point, right?
Not yet.
You got close to Canada. That's right. You flipped around at the border.
I'm eyeballing that route up to Alaska, and that sounds pretty fun. Although I don't know that I'll make it back before the roads get bad this year, but there is a Canada in my near future now that the border is open again.
Yeah, it's getting a little close to winter. So anyways, thank you for joining me today, Allison. I really appreciate it. Hopefully we'll see you here on the stream again. And good luck in your travels. Good luck, everybody, today. Catch us on Slack and, have fun building Alexa skills. Thank you, guys.
Bye.